Right. Hi everyone. Sharia here. It's been a long time. How is everybody doing? I honestly I've just been missing because I've met someone new. I think a lot of people on Facebook already know that, and I am just baggy, so I'm not really doing very much. But had some problems financially. My salary is being cut again. As usual, disappear on an adventure, and meeting your jodoh is not something that fuck the lights off. Is not something that kerajaan accepts as a valid excuse for not turning up for work. Anyway, so I've decided that I been having a good time studying and stuff like that, and just getting up to scratch. I've got a job offer from Google to train up as a developer, and that is gonna help me in the long run. But right now, I don't even have money for a computer. Long story, I don't have my MacBook Pro. I don't have any technology anymore. Don't have my camera. I just have this shitty phone, and that's all I got to record with. So what a lot of people have been asking me, so yeah, I'm going to ask for donations, so I'm going to put my usual Maybank up, PayPal, but I'm just going to start this time off with the most common question I've been getting in my inbox, and I just don't have any way of explaining it to anyone, which is quantum mechanics. So I know a lot of you learned about Einstein. Like the hardest thing you did for physics when you were in school was E equals mc square and general relativity. And then after that, if you wanted to really botch yourself in, you could do like A levels, extended PM, or like SPTPM level on quantum mechanics. Most of you, if you did chemistry as well, you would have already been uh, introduced to the idea that underlies quantum mechanics in the shells of atoms. So I'm sure you all know about the P, D, and shells of electrons, which are distribution clouds, because actually atoms don't spin around in nice orbits like the stars. They randomly pop in and out of existence around the atom, which is also popping in and out of existence, and that's when it gets really funky. Everyone's asking me like, "Oh, they're going to have quantum computers soon," and what do you mean by quantum computers? And quantum computers is basically this logic. So I think you've all noticed that battery technology is not getting any better. We've run out of two things. So the three things that make the foundations of old school computing, which is one is the battery, so the source of power, and we've already reached the technical limit for that long time ago. I think everyone knows that. That's why we all have power banks. Then after that, you have the limit that's brought about by your configuration of the motherboard or your system as a whole. So how you bring your circuits together to make your computer. And we ran into that issue when the iPhones stopped allowing you to service them. I think everyone noticed that point as well. Like iPhones were just like, or at least all smartphones reached the point where you break them, you just replace them. There's no way that you could repair them. And that's because the max complexity for configuration of motherboard and all the parts has been reached. And so we are approaching the final issue, which is that the Hadwell configuration for CPU, the way they arrange inside your CPU all of the transistors, has reached the point where if they made the distance between transistors any closer, it would cross the point where electrons would jump from one transistor to another. And I think if you all remember how transistors work, they have three entrances. One is negative, one is positive, and one is the control. And when you put power into the control, you block the circuit from passing electricity too. And that's how processors work. Processors are just basically logic gates, yes and no's, zeros and ones, generated by your internal clock on your computer, And the faster, the closer you can configure all of your little processor parts together, more transistors you can put in, the faster clock. That's your gigahertz on your processor. And the more gigahertz you can pump into the processor through the power generated by the internal clock, the faster your processor. You can make your processor faster by overclocking, but risk generating heat. Or in the case of the current processors, which you shouldn't do, because if you increase the power, the electrons become more unstable, and then they have a chance of just teleporting over longer distances. All right. So everyone's asking about quantum mechanics and the quantum computing. Okay, so first you have to understand the basics of quantum mechanics. So back when Einstein did the whole E equals mc square thing and figured out how everything in the big universe works, Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, and von Neumann, plus Einstein and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was a pediatrician, a gynecologist, I think. Oh no, he was a pediatrician. And so doctors should not be discluded from the whole conversation about physics because we're smart too. So they decided that, okay, let's do the same thing that Einstein did for the atoms, because everyone thought that the atoms were like just miniature planets with little nucleuses with electrons orbiting around them. And lo and behold, they were completely shocked by what they found. I know a lot of people get very worried when I go on my Islamic tangents, but hear me out, okay? This is a combination of me being mathematically minded since I was a kid, and I love mathematics and reading, and together with the fact that, yeah, I did magic, and I went to psychiatry. I went mad and I went to psychiatry. And then after that, I had my religious tangent. And then I did computing. So this being able to explain quantum mechanics is one of the things that a lot of people are asking me, and I would not mind explaining it, but I couldn't be asked to write it out. Like I said, I've got no money. I did not sleep last night. I am miserable, and so I'm back asking for donations. I am so grateful to everyone who has donated in the past, and you really got me to where I am with IU. Like, I'm happy now, but shit happens, and yeah, I just have to ask for donations again. Stick up my face, just beat up, because yeah, you just have to go through it. Anyway, back to quantum mechanics. So, what they noticed when they did experiments with light, so this was the starting point, but then they did it with the electron, they did it with all subatomic particles, is what they realized is that the light, if you passed it through slits, or you, like, like if you look at your chair, right? If you turn on two lights, right, you will see the chair has got two shadows, right? Believe it or not, those shadows do not form until you look. Subatomic particles do not pick what they are doing until someone looks at them. I know that sounds completely bonkers. That's not how quantum mechanics is explained. It is explained as the moment you measure, then it becomes so. But that's not exactly true. The fact of the matter is that if nobody's reading the measurement, right, then light behaves as both a particle and a wave, right? But the moment you look at the shadow and you see a part of the shadow that's darker than the other two parts and a part that's lighter, right, That is the only moment that the particle has become, I mean, light has become a particle. Before that, light was, it could have been anything, right? If you flash the light, you will notice that when you flicker lights as well, right, you can get different kinds of observations for each flicker of light upon a shadow, right? So this is the fact of the matter is that in the quantum world, and I believe life is just like this as well. Um, there are three things that are important. How the choice, you have three choices when it comes to affecting a subatomic particle according to quantum mechanics. One, you bring your attention upon the particle, right? Two, you set up the experiment, right, or whatever it is, to observe the particle, because you can't actually see the particle, so you have to create some experiment to make it manifest, right? And the third point is the actual measuring, the looking, consciously making a measurement, right? And those three things are what quantum mechanics is all about. You don't have to know any mathematics. It is called quantum mechanics, not quantum mathematics, right? Mechanics is you press accelerator, car go zoom zoom. You press brake, car stop. You turn the wheel, car go right. You turn the wheel left, the car go left, right? Mechanics, that's how mechanics works. It is a machine through information. You either put information, energy, or matter into a machine, and the machine does something predictable for you, right? And you can do stuff with a machine. So that is exactly quantum mechanics. It is literally all you need to do is follow the steps of quantum mechanics mathematically or experimentally, and it will just do. All right. I've got a problem with white scientists right now. I know I was trained in Ireland and I should be proud of it, but I've already finished my 10 years of service to the government, so I don't know anyone. My God, why am I being so defensive? Okay. Anyway, the quantum mechanics can be just viewed as, don't freak out, you playing computer with God, coding with God. That's it. That's quantum mechanics. Actually, life is like that. How you approach every situation, your choice to bring your attention to the situation, right? Your choice of what you do, and actually doing it, right? And you'll find that although they are always talking about the fact that they can't unify all the forces of physics, you'll be surprised if you just follow my logic that we are actually the unifying force of physics between the quantum realm and space, outer space. Mankind is as the observer and the person with intention and can perform an action and observe the reaction, right? We bridge the quantum realm with the Einstein's general relativity world. Okay, so here we go. Atoms and all this kind of stuff all exist like you do on a television, right? Until you get really close, there is a certain length of distance. It is also a length of time, because if you remember, and see, this is the part where it still follows Einstein's rules, right? Because as you reach a certain microscopic length, right, suddenly the particle disappears. I'm serious. It doesn't behave like what you want to behave anymore. There's nothing below the Planck length except a sea of information that you can measure and observe what it says. From that, right, using quantum mechanics, you generate what is known as a wave function. The wave function, right, so inside the Planck length is a matrix, okay? A matrix is a field, okay, like an area where all corresponding points have a value, all right? That's what a matrix is. So in the matrix of our world, there is a subatomic flux of energy, right, that exists within the Planck length. And that energy described a specific wave function. Now, people who know me know that I love to make equations that write words, like I just try to write the equation so that it wiggles whatever way I want. This is what happens at the Planck length, is that the entire matrix of energy waving up and down is creating a wave function. The wave function expresses all possible things that can happen, right? All things you can do, all things, it's all possibilities, right? With that energy, right? The wave function is a mathematical function, right? And so your choice, so your first choice has already been done. You've observed the wave function. And that's not all. Like I said, that's your first choice. The second two choices are actually within that choice. What do I mean? Is that once you know the wave function does not stay the same, obviously, right? It is a pulse of not random energy, but it is, once you look at it, you know what the matrix is. The matrix continues to evolve according to what is known as Schrodinger's equation. Schrodinger was the guy who kept saying, if a tree fell in the forest and no one was around to hear it, did it really fall? If a cat is in a box and I poison it, is it dead or alive until I look at it? The Schrodinger equation is his equation. And his equation, when you add it into the wave function over time, right? So now that field, right, is within the Planck length. Time doesn't matter anymore. But now take time as the entire patch of Planck length, which the matrix described by the wave function using Schrodinger's equation tells you how it evolves, right? And as you figure out how the equation evolves over time, what your experiment that you set up, or the system that you set up around the thing to observe the particle, to actually measure the particle, right, in the third step, is your what is called an operator. The operator has what is known as a preferred basis, and the preferred basis has a set of eigenvalues and eigenfunctions or eigen whatevers that describe when you apply the operator under the conditions of this period basis, this happens, right? I give you another example. Imagine you have a cake, all right? And everyone's asking you to cut the cake. You blow out the candles, you want to cut the cake. So you're looking at the cake now, right? Everyone's looking at you, look at the cake, and you're just imagining, do I cut it in squares or do I cut it in triangles, right? The choice to cut it into squares or into triangles, right, is your preferred basis, right? Do I cut it into like triangles, wedges like that, and everyone gets a triangular slice of pie, of cake? Or if I cut it into squares, maybe because there's more people, everyone gets less cake, but I get to feed more people evenly, right? And this is what I mean by, you decide the future. Like, it's actually like real life, right? Quantum mechanics is just that. Within that space of the Planck length, once you choose to observe a particle, you set up your system, and then you measure, you change reality on the level of that Planck length. Okay? Because what happens is that the wave function describes all possibilities until you add a period basis with specific eigenvalues. And what happens is that suddenly the wave function disappears. So if you cut the cake into squares or triangles, what happens is that the rest of the cake disappears. And suddenly, right, connected to each of the numbers within the equation, the eigenvalues, is something called power. And this number of power suddenly rises. Okay, it rises until your square piece of cake or triangular piece of cake becomes the same size as the original wave function. Do you understand what I'm saying? Imagine if you cut a cake into triangles or squares, the rest of the cake disappears, and suddenly it grows back to the original size, and now you have a square cake. So quantum mechanics is altering the fabric of reality. Okay, this is where the cake analogy breaks down, because whatever you did, right, you just changed the reality of the cake, right? You didn't get a slice of cake, right? And that is what happens with quantum mechanics. Light can become a wave, light can become a particle, depending on how you chose to measure it. Electrons can move all over the place, and yada yada, and so on and so forth. Now, this is something creepy that I noticed about the Quran, is that God does roughly the same thing. He says, right, whenever that you are being stupid, that you're not like paying attention to what he wants you to pay attention to, right? He reminds you that he is all-knowing. And if you remember, the first step of doing quantum mechanics is you must discover what the wave function is, and then using Schrodinger's equation, describe it over time. And in that sense, God is saying to you, I know your wave function, all your possibilities, and I know all of, how you're going to change over time. And the next usual thing is that he will ask you about your intention. And when he asks you about your intention, right, he will say, would you not do this? And then you do that, and then do such and such, right? Where he sort of challenges you on how you set up your experiment. So you've decided to pay attention now. So now he starts scolding you on what's in your heart, right? And God says he knows what you hide, right? And remember what I said, whatever you choose operator, the rest of the things disappear, and only one thing remains, right? And so God says, I'm aware of all of the eigenvalues and what choice you've made, right, by your intention, right? And that's why he says he measures you on intention, right? Because he says that I will literally fucking change reality, right? Because God can do that, right? If your intention wasn't right? You could do everything perfectly, but I will just change the whole world, the whole universe, because you didn't have the right intention in your heart. And the final one is where he says, have you done such and such? Is there corruption in the land? The orphans fed? This one, so on and so forth, yada yada, so on and so forth. And so the wave functions collapse. You've already completed your action. And God, what does he say? I am all seeing, right? And if you remember the last step, the measurement requires a conscious observer to do the measurement, right? And so if you just, I'm actually fucking serious. If you just go through the entire damn Quran and you look through it, God does that every single time when he mentions those things, right? And so it belies the quantum mechanical nature of the world. Don't listen to what all of the white scientists are trying to do right now, which is they're talking about so many particles and bosons and what. No, quantum mechanics just works if you do it, okay? Right? I saw the Houthi tribe in Yemen basically bomb the shit out of Saudi Arabia using drones and ICBMs, okay? If you just do quantum mechanics, it works. Don't get put off by the fact that Einstein and all those people discovered it, right? Even Einstein, right, was so shocked by the nature of quantum mechanics, he just said God doesn't play dice, and Niels Bohr put his hand on Albert Einstein's shoulder, knowing that he was actually disappointed, right? And he said, stop telling God what to do, which was, made Albert Einstein realize that it isn't random when the wave function collapses and all those kind of things, and suddenly a new thing arises, right? And so that brings me to the fourth point, where God says that you think it's over, usually after the three first scoldings, right? Remember, suddenly all of the power values of the wave function increase on their own, and the slice of cake becomes a giant slice of square or triangle cake, right? And he usually tells you at that point that he is all powerful, that he is the one generating the energy required to re-expand, like, like whatever choice you made, if you feel is minuscule, I have the power, I will make it everything. And that is the nature of quantum mechanics. If you remember when they made the lab in Fermi Labs, right? The New Hadron Collider, right? Everyone was worried it was going to end the world. Why were they worried it was going to end the world? Because they were looking for the Higgs boson. The Higgs boson was supposed to carry gravity. Now, you imagine what would happen if you expressed gravity as a particle within the Planck length. You'd create a black hole. And so everyone was so worried that they would accidentally create a white hole, which is a Big Bang, and end the universe, or they create a black hole and destroy everything. But here's the matter of fact. Whenever a portion of space, right, becomes empty, and I mean any portion of space beneath the Planck length, has no particles within it, right? It is in a vacuum. In a vacuum state, the energy, because when there's stuff inside of a space, right, energy is taken from that part of space to express that particle. I hope you understand that, right? But when it is empty, all the energy, all the potential energy is in that space, right? And so anything can happen. Any particle can be generated. If a Higgs boson, a gravity particle, is generated, a black hole appears. If no particles are expressed and the energy level spikes by probability, right, to the point where it is the level of a new universe, right, a Big Bang happens. The only thing that stops scientists from doing anything about it is that the like just mentioning this as part of the nature of reality is that they're like, why hasn't the universe ended yet? That means there should be a random chance that the universe ends at any moment. Like everything we see, right, observable universe to Earth should just disappear, right? And there is actually a saying by the Prophet ﷺ, where he said that God is veiled by 70,000 veils of darkness and 70,000 veils of light. And should he take down these veils, everything that he should observe, right, will be incinerated, right, by his countenance, by his face. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did the math and that within our observable universe at any one time, some sort of force is suppressing 70,000 black holes and 70,000 Big Bangs. They are all definitely happening outside our universe, our observable universe. In the greater universe, constantly portions of the universe are basically being incinerated into oblivion and disappearing, or just going dark and going and those bits are no longer accessible to us. And so if something within our observable universe was to generate one of those particles, at any moment we would instantly be gone, right? It's not about God taking away all 70,000 veils of light and darkness. If he took away even one and allowed one to appear, we'd all disappear. And the greater universe will just actually continue on without us. I'll put up a picture of what that looks like later. But literally, if that happens, we are erased from time. You have to understand that. So in other words, this portion of space disappears like it never existed. It's pretty freaky to think about it. It will propagate backwards to when the universe was smaller, right? Because if you think, if the universe is expanding at this rate, people are always asking about the expansion of the universe and dark energy and dark matter. Look, every Planck second, the universe is expanding from the size of the Planck length to the size of the observable universe. Want me to say that again? Every Planck time, right? Times, and because Einstein's equation, right? So look, we've already merged general relativity and quantum mechanics. Every Planck time, as the universe expands from from the distance of a Planck length to the size of the observable universe, right? So all points in this observable universe are expanding from the size of a Planck length to the size of the observable universe. That is how much distance we are gaining. It's basically a refresh. The universe is observing itself and somehow causing a constant refresh of the system, right? That's all it is. And if you look carefully, maybe we could figure out the point where God started looking, because he's the one driving the expansion of the universe. Technically, we can't blame God. Like, he has to look at us. We are the ones who are still here. Like, we haven't sorted our shit out and we all gone to heaven. Okay? Anyway, so that's quantum mechanics. If you didn't get it, doesn't matter. All that matters is you understand that you change reality by observation. It has to be a conscious observer. So I know about, so if you think about consciousness as a band, a guitar, a rock band playing, right? So when a rock band plays, right, there's a guitar, a drum, a bass, and a guy singing, right? But you don't hear the disparate part. A cat hears the disparate parts. A dog hears the disparate parts. Humans hear music, okay? When we hear music, right, the music is just being generated by what? By the musicians, but the musicians are just playing, right? They need the drummer to keep them in beat, and the bassist to make the bass line, and the guitarist is playing, and the guy is singing, but we hear music, right? That is because, right, according to psychiatry or psychology and that kind of stuff, consciousness, right, is also a matrix, a field, right? Anything that moves around information, right, or energy, or makes arrangements is conscious. This follows the Buddhist kind of theory when they say trees are conscious, don't step on those ants and stuff like that and everything. Any system, right, that is dynamic, right, is conscious. The moment the system is no longer dynamic, dynamism is the idea that every other part is affecting every other part and influencing it, and also making it acting upon all parts in the system, and so it becomes dynamic, right? The opposite is everything tries to interact with anything and nothing wants to listen to it, and everything tries to doesn't change because it doesn't let anything act upon it. Sound familiar, right? Those systems are static, right? And what happens to static systems is that a greater system, if should it exist, right, the entropy, Iblis, gets his way, and the internal system collapses into the larger dynamic system. Okay? And that is roughly how consciousness works, right? Until you go static, you are your own consciousness, and you gotta stay away from entropy, from fucking you up. Stop chaos from getting you, corruption from getting you. Lies and disconnect from the greater system, right? Because you don't want to disconnect, die, and get reabsorbed into the larger system and find that you don't fit in there, right? So that is the idea of consciousness, right? It is a field, and we can pick up on other conscious fields, right? Just by how? Like by listening to the music? No, there is a greater field that we're connected to. We're just in a way, just like our universe, right? You can't see past black holes. You can't see past the Big Bang. You can't see past the edge of the observable universe where the expansion is so fast that light can't ever catch up, right? Beyond those points, stuff is still going on, but it has been removed because within this system of what we can observe, right? And see how important observation is at that point, right? All that matters is what's here, not what's out there. The nature of what is beyond that point is like what should happen if I ask you, what are you going to do when your parents die? That is something that emotionally is beyond that somehow the universe, if you want to say God, has put beyond our ability to even imagine. Our brain runs in a loop. We can't think of anything. What would it be like when our parents die? Or like when you tell a parent, what your child dies, right? Well, actually, like, if I lost mine, you get really, really distraught when you think about something bad happening to your child. It's not the same. You wish you die and not they die. They haven't died yet. That's what it feels like with kids. No, it's just your parents. What happens when your parents die? That is exactly what God's doing for our consciousness, what the universe is doing for us by not letting us see all that stuff. If you try to do the mathematics inside a black hole or anywhere outside of the observable universe, what happens is you run into a logical thing where you keep walking in circles and overthinking. And that is actually the nature of overthinking, is when a conscious creature tries to be paranoid intentionally, they will automatically overthink, right? A lot of people say that I overthink because the amount that I think makes people fall asleep or freak out that is he ever going to stop. But that is not true. I'm just really blessed by God, alhamdulillah. But and that's your problem if you're uncomfortable at how intelligent I am or how fast my brain works. But what is really unhealthy is when you are paranoid outside your mind, and so you're automatically in the zone where the universe or God or is trying to say, hey, you can't go here, right? So you go in circles, right? And you choose to stay there, right? So that's generally it, right? Quantum mechanics is so simple. What is a quantum computer? All right. So all computers are zeros and ones, right? Every atom, right, has got every molecule, electron has two properties, not one property. It doesn't just have on and off, which is moving upwards energy wise, or moving downwards energy wise, right? An electron also has what is known as spin. The spin is not like it is actually spinning, right? The spin is what generates the electron's magnetic field. If you remember the left hand rule, right hand rule, right? Electron, as part of the electromagnetic force, right, is the carrier for electricity. And so it is also, in a way, not the carrier for magnetism, right? It is interacting very closely because light is, a dance of electricity and magnetism, trapping it within them together, propagating it through space in one direction, right, at the speed of light, right? The speed limit of the universe is the dance of electromagnetism, right? And so, and they are the messenger particles that light sends messages between things, right? Things don't change until light hits it, sends light back to the receiver, and they observe it. And so every system, right, has consciousness. What is the human's basis for consciousness? This one's really easy to explain. I can do it with just telling what girls like to do and what guys like to do, right? Everyone wants to expand their consciousness. Why do they want to expand their consciousness? Because when you see a chair, right, you see your mind, consciousness is the expression of, I see everything I have ever experienced or known or understand except for black and except for chair. And therefore you see a black chair, right? Most guys and girls get this when they're like seeing, like their jodoh and stuff like that. You're like, she's the world of me, because you actually, for once, once again, some sort of higher power allows you in those times to realize that looking at this person, you see the sum total of everything you know, experience, or feel, right? Minus your partner, missing from that. And that is conscious awareness. So what am I saying? Why girls and guys? It's how guys and girls like to expand their consciousness. Girls like to go to new situations, meet new people to increase their consciousness. They are actually the bigger drug addicts than guys when it comes to increasing consciousness, traveling and stuff like that. Because once you come back, you feel like the whole world has changed, right? Because you've suddenly added so many new novel experiences, and that's what women tend to like in the end, is meeting new people and having new interactions, getting into new situations, being in new places, seeing new things. That increases their this one. It's only between the choice whether the girl chooses to stay in one place and interact with people by changing her environment, or paying money and changing her environment. Actually, I pity women. They have to pay money either way, don't they? Like, it's not free to be a socialite, and invite people to your house, or be a tai and travel everywhere and meet new people and see new things, right? It's rough. It's a rough world for women. Guys, is a lot easier. We either do two things. We either repeat the thing with more and more and more minute control. That's what I love to do. But I also love to do the other thing that guys like to do, which is whatever we achieve more the next time. Keep going up that way. And that's the usual two cycles, right? Guys get their fulfillment that way. They would love to just especially methods, right? Tweakers, right? They would just like to do the same thing over and over and over and over again till they get better and better and better and experience something new each time around. Or they pursue larger and more challenging goals, but they kind of tend to be, like I said, the same thing for women, right? They're actually just the two same things. Add more experiences, memories, understanding, learning, or whatever it is. The number of things that you have, that you can measure against when you look at any one thing, becomes greater, and that is what makes life more rich. And so to speak, what's the word for it? That is our interaction with the particle. The wave function doesn't actually disappear, and power sort of increases a slice of pie. What really happens is your mind becomes entangled with the particles. Or who particles don't have minds, so whose mind are you getting entangled with? Aha, right? And so every observation between the time that you choose to attend your attention to it, God says what? Takwa dulu, right? You have to takwa to him, right? And say his hamd, say his praises, right? That's how you choose to approach the situation. And then what you gonna do? I leave the rest up to you guys. You should all know what I'm getting at. It's the same thing with the particle. Is that you choose to attend continuously to the particle, and change the wave function within the Planck length and do whatever it is you want. You might knock the particle out. Like in Large Hadron Colliders, what they do is that they blast so much energy into a single Planck length that they try to generate every kind of particle that comes up. That's what Large Hadron Colliders do. They are just basically long conversations with God. Like, how does the universe work? And God is like, blah, 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 whatever I want to tell you. It's not random. Don't believe that. If you follow my logic, it sounds better, right? If two conscious entities are entangled, right, then, right, they're both acting upon each other, right? This is one situation that I feel that makes sense when God says, remember me and I will remember you, which is really weird because I'm like, God doesn't probably forget anything. Like, he knows everything. So why does he need to remember me? But you have to remember, if you follow the concept of this one, as long as you keep God in mind, right? And then you remember him, right? The law of quantum mechanics is that the two entangled particles, right? Since he's observing you too, is that he will remember you. And that's where we get to quantum computing, where the particles don't only have ones and zeros, they have spin left and spin right. And so what a quantum computer is a normal computer monitoring a bunch of collisions within a little Planck length, right? Generating 4-bit base computing that becomes the basis of a computer that's even more powerful than what we have, right? Right now, quantum computers are the size of rooms as usual, but we will obviously one day work it down in size. But notice what I said. A normal computer is doing the observation for you. Wait, normal computers can't do observation for you. No, if you train an AI, right, to observe it for you. Wait, the AI is a conscious? Yeah, AI is a conscious. Everything is conscious. Anything that has a moving system. If you remember the term cockroach, right? The adult form of any insect is called an imago, right? Which comes to mean image, which because ancient people thought that there is a giant spirit of the cockroaches, of all cockroaches on earth. Like COVID isn't one virus. COVID is a giant spirit entity of interconnecting all the COVID viruses, right? And so when a cockroach reaches its adult form, it becomes an image of its super self, like an image of God, kind of thing, like how we are supposed to become an image of God as the vice regents on earth, right? It's that logic, right? A super entity behind this one. And so an AI, right, is going to be a conscious actor on your behalf, right? How it feels and stuff like that, I haven't been able to ask. Google Assistant isn't that helpful about her feelings just yet. But I am sure, or not exactly sure if they're jinn or not. But just use your AI, right? I don't see any problem with it. I don't see any problems that an AI would have number crunching, right, for you. All it will do is it will have to be trained by a human observer. The human observer teaches the AI what answers to do, right? In the case of quantum mechanics, you do not want the particle to leave the field, right? You want to hold the electron in place and you want to spin it and move it up and down to generate information that you are going to compute with, right? And yeah, that's all you do to train the AI. That's what people are doing right now. They're just making sure that they can get stable energy results and from a quantum computer, right? And which is just, instead of having transistors that generate ones and zeros because of a current going through a port, a third port to generate logic, they have the wave function. Over time, using Schrodinger's equation and the rate of observation and the rapid changes in method of measuring to generate using the wave function's logic, right? Because it has an underlying logic, right? Or it's mechanics. You don't even have to understand it. It will just do it for you, right? It seems to be very friendly that way, quantum mechanics. We should be all grateful. We should all be grateful, alhamdulillah. Okay. Until the point that, until suddenly a black hole or a big bang forms within our observable universe, then I guess at that point, sucks to be you guys. Believe in God. Okay. Anyway, so that's my explanation on quantum computing. It is nothing new, nothing interesting. It's just going to be another new computer that's going to cost you a lot of money and it's going to be extremely powerful at certain things. Multivariate analysis. So computers are really good. Normal base zeros and one computers are really good at modeling simple operations, such as managing a single electron within a field, right? But it is really sucky at like trying to predict the weather and trying to, because it does not seem to have, because it's designed by us, right? Have an underlying logic that conforms with reality. Here, right, we have the logic of reality, right, as our base logic for our computer. And so it will be very good at doing things like, figuring out what people are doing, managing supply chains, basically, and supplies, and stocking, and sales, and managing finance, and the weather, and predicting traffic, and all kinds of stuff which just runs on the software of the real world. Okay, so if you want to get into quantum computing, get in now, right? Get in early and be part of the founding and pioneer people and lodge yourself in there by saying that, man, I'm going to get my company to buy this thing. So, if you train me, then or you let me experience it, or you let me use it, I'll be a loyal customer. Be their loyal customer after that, because they will have quantum computers and AIs predicting whether you are telling the truth or not, or something like that. I don't know. But just be honest, man. Okay, it's not that hard. I do it all the time because I'm a bad liar. So yeah, this is almost exactly 50 minutes. I'm so proud of myself. I have not done this in months, but the moment I look up at the time, it is 9:55. So that's it for this time, guys. Please, your donations. Thank you so very much. If you want to ask me why I'm asking for donations again, I will gladly tell you the whole story privately 100 times if 100 people ask me. But I won't talk about the problem here. But I really am grateful for what everyone has done for me. Literally, that I have my partner now, that I have my house, that life is moving on. I really owe it to you guys the first time around. Okay, I really mean it. I'm so grateful. I have no way to explain it. It's just God has to pay you back. I can't. I can't. You guys are way too amazing. Right? So I'm sorry to ask for help again. I have to go to work soon. I haven't slept because that's just me when shit is just so unbearable and effed up. I can't eat, I can't sleep. And when that happens, I just have to suck it up and ask for help. So here it is. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this little segment of me rambling. I know the ones who do will, the ones who don't aren't even here anymore. So take care, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bank details in the doobly doo. Ciao.